Both Democratic presidential candidates have indicated that they would offer broader protections for so-called dreamers than President Obama when he announced the Deferred Action for Child Arrivals, DACA, an executive order that provides temporary work permits and exemptions from deportation. On the other side, Republican candidates have called for mass deportations of undocumented parents and children. Joining me to discuss how DACA affected her life is Cindy Nava, a graduate student at the University of New Mexico, and Eva Eitzen, legal director of the New Mexico Immigrant Law Center, which provides legal assistance to low-income families. Thank you for joining me. Cindy, let me start with you. How old were you when you arrived to the U.S., and what were the circumstances?
Sure. Thank you for having me. And I was around about 7 years old. And I arrived with my brother and my sister, and my parents, of course. And my parents actually attempted to get us the passports needed to come over to the U.S., but the procedure was very difficult and we were denied. So we had to come over, and my parents just really were seeking for a better life and a better future for us.
What was it like growing up in the shadow of being an undocumented child immigrant?
It's different. It's very different. I think it makes you feel a little confused many times, and sometimes you don't know it. You're not fully aware, I think, until you are put in places where you're distinct or different. So it was, for me, I was just a normal child. I thought I had everything.
Did you grow up identifying as an American, or did you have a Mexican, as you stated, being an immigrant from Mexico, a Mexican identity?
I absolutely did, yes. So I can truly call myself a Mexican New Mexican, so like a Mexican American, because I grew up with a language, a very strong language, with my grandparents coming from Mexico every year to visit, and my mom, tradition, culture. So I grew up with that very strongly. But I also became part of the American culture. So, I celebrated everything, and I thought I was fully American.
How did you manage to excel academically and reach the graduate level at a very prestigious university?
Of course. I think it's really been persistence. Persistence and a lot of really amazing people that have supported me along the way, because by myself I could not have done it. I've always been thrilled to learn, and that's probably been my main passion, but it's the people that have supported my way.
And so what prompted you to apply for the DACA program?
Well, when you're an undocumented student, higher education is complicated. In New Mexico, we are lucky. We are super blessed, because there's no other state like our state that would allow us to do as much as we do as students here. So, and that's a reality. Starting by the lottery scholarship, which we are eligible to receive. But DACA is the most, to me, is a true blessing, because with it, we are actually able to be legally employed. And that is, and maybe an assistantship, of paid fellowship, things that I was never, ever able to do. And I received 1 million offers, and I had to turn them down because I could not provide a social security number. And those things are very hard to take. And DACA, to me, is a true gateway and a true stepping stone.
Eva, so what is the difference between DACA and the action now that is pending before the Supreme Court, the Deferred Action for Parents and Lawful Permanent Residents? There seems to be some confusion out there in the public about what is the difference?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, DACA is for young people who were brought to the United States as children. So they have to have been brought here to the United States before they were 16 years old, and they must have come to the United States before June 2007. They also need to fulfill some educational requirement. They need to be either in high school or pursuing a high school diploma or a GED program. DAPA is different. DAPA is for parents of U.S. citizens and lawful permanent residents who are longtime residents of the United States. So they need to have lived here since January 2010. And so that program is much larger.
Cindy, what kind of reaction have you received since you were approved, your approval for DACA?
Well, it's been a wild ride, like I call it. Having the opportunity to to conduct a fellowship at the Democratic National Committee, it kind of exposed me, and I had the opportunity to share my story at a national basis, and I did. And it was, I can tell you very honestly, it's a scary thing to move forward because you don't know the reactions that people will get. And through those, upon that, those actions came a lot of criticism that was very, very scary.
What kind of, give us some examples.
Absolutely. So, my story came out in the Washington Post, and I started getting social media attacks from people who identify themselves as Trump supporters. And I started getting private messages telling me to get out of the country, that I didn't belong here, that they knew where I lived, that they were going to go find me. So it was very, very scary. I had to contact my congressional delegation, for New Mexico, and really make them aware because it's a scary thing to think that you're sharing a story to empower and to bring so many others, because the story is not only me. I represent so much more than just myself and my parents and every immigrant, here in this country. And to get that reaction from people was just very hard for me to process.
Eva, should Cindy be concerned about the next president if the next president decides to end DACA? Because it's an executive order.
Right.
Are those fears real, and should there be concern?
There absolutely should be concern. I don't think there should be panic. A next president could end DACA, and that would mean all of these people like Cindy who have started to really contribute to our society in a way that's very meaningful will have a lot less opportunities. Cindy won't be able to renew her work permit, and so the types of employment opportunities she would have would be much more limited. At the same time, I just would like to say a future president would not be able to go out and deport every single undocumented person in the United States. We have the resources to deport around 400,000 people a year, and there are over 11 million people who are undocumented in this country.
So, Cindy, why do you think it was worth the risk that you take to publicly advocate for immigration reform and to apply for a DACA program when the federal government has all the information about you?
Right. I think it's the inherent sense of belonging that I feel in this country. And that's a very honest comment. And I have hope. And I have hope that our next presidential elected, official really considers the contributions that our families and our communities are making across the country, and especially in a state like New Mexico. Because if you don't see the immigrant population and the profits that they bring, then you're probably blind. Because our families contribute day to day, from our grandparents to our parents to every single worker, from the lady who cleans your house to the man who's building your home, they're contributing. And I have hope. And I think that's why I really took the risk to share my story and to empower others that, we can work in a unified fashion, even if we're working in distinctive ways. Maybe some are advocating in front lines of rallies. Maybe others are working behind the doors, maybe with legislative elected officials in policy and politics. So I think it's just the unification of the importance.
And Eva, what is the most important message that you would convey to the thousands of DACA applicants here, or DACA approved young people in New Mexico, and the tens of thousands across the country, in terms of dispelling fears that they will or may be deported?
Sure. Well, of course, I can't guarantee that any individual person won't be deported. At the same time, DACA happened because of the strength of the movement, because of the strength of the Dreamers. And they've shown that politically, even though they can't vote, they can influence the political process. And so I think it's just really important for people to remain politically active and just keep on pushing forward no matter what happens. And then for those of us who do have the privilege of being U.S. citizens, it's important to vote and make our voice heard in that way, so that our elected officials know that we want a fair and just immigration system.
And just to add on that note, I definitely agree that people should be aware and politically active. And I think a lot of the times there's a lot of fear with our undocumented communities that maybe they're not able to participate. But I can tell you from my hands-on experience that you can surely participate. There's so many ways. We are powerful, our voices are powerful, and we are ground people. So we know how to work and we know how to get things done. So I would really encourage our communities to really become active and learn the issues because they matter and this election is going to matter.
Eva and Cindy, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.